please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please. Supervisors Kohlmeyer and O'Day are excused. Thank you. This time we'll open the floor up to citizens' comments. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. Please state your name and address for the record. Is it on?
Did you turn them on?
This plan is a result of an intensive two-year effort by a group that was comprised of members throughout Kenosha County. This is very comprehensive, and I think it will provide a good framework for the future. My experience has been that when you have a plan, it will allow the county, from a fiscal responsibility, to get access to grants to hopefully construct facilities as time permits. Yeah, if the county has a plan that allows, generally the agencies that review grants, probably if you have a comprehensive plan. So I urge the county to support and approve this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
My name is Michael Maloney. I live at 7837 23rd Avenue in the city of Kenosha. I also want to speak on Quiet Plan this evening, and I wanted to speak to the economics of it. In 2010, the University of Wisconsin did a report detailing the financial impacts of bicycling in the state of Wisconsin. Through their research, they came out with a number of $924 million is the
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Stan Rosenfield, 7843 32nd Avenue, Kenosha. I am here to speak about the comprehensive bicycle plan. I think it's a good idea. I'm in favor of it. I want to say that this benefits motorists as well. By putting shoulders on a highway, it leaves room for the motorists to get by. So this is a win for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Ralph Ruffalo. I live at 8602 Third Avenue, Pleasant Prairie. I also, besides being a resident of Kenosha County, I also own the bike shop at Southport Brady. And so I know a lot of the bikers in Kenosha County, and I know a lot of the bikers outside of Kenosha County. I was part of this committee, part of this plan, and I want to say that I was very impressed with all the members of the plan, both the at-large members like myself and members of the county government, village government, city government. Everybody really put a lot of hard work into looking at the county comprehensively to see where would be the best routes. I think this plan represents our best effort to say how people should move to the county on bikes. And this plan is well vetted with people who ride bikes, not only from Kenosha County, but people who ride through Kenosha County. In my store, I have well over 12,000 names of families who bike in Kenosha County. We sell over 800 bikes a year, and just sort of give you an idea, nationally it says that the independent bike shop only sells about 20% of the bikes sold. The rest of the bikes are sold by the big box stores. So, biking is a big thing. It's a good thing for the health of the community. I read all the time in the newspaper that Kenosha County has a very high rate of unhealthy people compared to other parts of the state. I hear every day from people who say they like to commute to work, but we don't have good north-south routes to commute with. Or they're in the new subdivisions out close to I-94, and they're almost landlocked. There's no easy ways without being really high traffic roads to get onto a road and take the right way. I think we attempted in this plan to address those issues. It's a plan. There's no money being asked for today. There's no money being asked for until some road were to get rebuilt that we have designated as a place that would be a good bike route. And then each one of those things can be brought up, and voted on as mayors at that time. So I urge you to support this plan. I think it's a very solid plan. It's a plan for the future of the county that we'll all be glad to consider.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Letitia Short, formerly of Summers, now of Mount Pleasant. I've been on this committee for almost a year now. It's been comprised of people from the towns, the villages, the cities of this county, people that had experience and knowledge of each individual community. Everybody was asked for their input. We met regularly. It's been a very positive experience. This plan
Thank you.
Joe Clark, 4862 105th Place, Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin. I received an email today and have been following us in the paper. And I'm not a biker, but I come to just speak a little bit of the history. When we talked about this as a
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Anybody else wishing to speak? Anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing no other speakers, citizens' comments are closed. For my announcements, I would just like to wish everybody a safe and happy 4th of July, and we'll move on to our awards for this evening. County Executive Cruiser, if you'd like to join me up here.
You guys can just stand right here. Coach, you can get on the other side. Is this on right here? You are in for a treat tonight. As you all know, the county spends between $7 and $8 million on those youth who don't make the right decisions. We are here with some young ladies who have made the right decisions. And let them represent all of those parents that support their student athletes, their coaches, some of them who have been coaching for decades. Not coach. Born here though. Just a period of time. We won't go into the decades. But the families, the coaches, and of course all the student athletes that participate and spend a lot of time in preparation. How often do you train?
6 days a week.
6 days a week at least. So it takes a lot of time to do that and rigor to do your educational studies also, because that is a requirement to be on these teams. So with that, I think it's more than appropriate to, I'm going to start with Tanea Gully. A certificate of recognition presented to Tanea Gully. Whereas the Kenosha community is proud of Tremper High School only a junior, wow, Tanea Gully, who as part of a Tremper girls team won the Division I team title, the first in the school's history at the 2013 WIAA State Track and Field Championships in La Crosse, Wisconsin on June 1st, 2013. How does that feel?
Feels good.
There you go. And whereas, led by Coach Deb Bornhuter, Tanea Gully and teammates Danielle Riggins, who could not be here tonight, and Brittany Favor, scored 48 points, beating the second place team Waukesha West by 2 points and bringing home the first WIAA State Track and Field title for the Kenosha County team since 1965. And whereas, at the WIAA State Track and Field Championships, Tanea finished second in the 100-meter hurdles with a time of 14.43 seconds. Second in the 300-meter hurdles with a time of 44.86 seconds, and third in the 100-meter dash with a time of 12.49 seconds. And whereas Tanea was the regional champion in the 300-meter hurdles, second in the 100-meter dash, and the 100-meter hurdles, she was the sectional champion in the 100-meter hurdles and the 100-meter dash. And whereas Tanea is a 3-time state qualifier, and whereas Tanea's accomplishments and winning attitude are a source of pride, not only for her family, but the entire Kenosha community. Now therefore we, Jim Cruiser, Kenosha County Executive, Jeff Gentz, County Board Chairman, together with the County Board of Supervisors, do hereby present the certificate of recognition to Tanea Gully in recognition and appreciation of her hard work and determination as one of the 3 members in the girls team who won Division I team title at the WIAA State Track and Field Championships. We are extremely proud of her achievements and are honored to claim her as our true and model representative of our community. Signed by County Board Chairman Gentz and myself, Jim Cruiser. Congratulations. Would you like to speak?
I did not expect to say anything. but one thing I want to say is I do want to thank God because I believe in Him, and I feel like He put me in this place for a reason. And I want to thank my wonderful coach, Coach Borenheater. She does a lot for us as student athletes, and we wouldn't be able to work as hard without her. And I just want to say this was awesome to help Brittany in her senior year bring home a state title, and hopefully we can do it again next year. Thank you.
Now, if you read the sports sections in the last number of years, you read a lot about Gully and Favor. A lot of column inches, haven't you? Your scrapbook's got to be that thick. Certificate of recognition presented to Brittany Favor. Whereas the Kenosha community is proud of Tremper High School senior Brittany Favor, who as a part of the Tremper girls team won a Division I team title and the first in school's history at the 2013 WIAA State Track and Field Championships in lacrosse on June 1st, 2013. And whereas, led by Coach Deb Borenheater, Brittany Favor, and teammates Danielle Riggins and Tanoia Gully, scored 48 points, beating second place Waukesha team by 2 points, and bringing home the first WIAA State Track and Field title for a Kenosha County team since 1965. And whereas, at the WIAA State and Track and Field Championships, Brittany finished 5th in the 3,200-meter run with a time of 10 minutes and 46.76 seconds, which is a new school record. And whereas Brittany is a 3-time state qualifier and was the indoor and outdoor county champion in the 3,200-meter run, and whereas Brittany was a conference champion in the 3,200-meter run, the sectional champion in the 3,200-meter run, and the regional champion in the 3,200-meter run, and set a record at Lake Geneva High School. And whereas Brittany's accomplishments and winning attitude are a source of pride, not only for her family, but the entire Kenosha community, now therefore, we, Jim Cruiser, Kenosha County Executive, and Jeff Gentz, County Board Chairman, together with the County Board of Supervisors, do hereby present the certificate of recognition to Brittany Favor in recognition and appreciation of her hard work and determination as one of the 3 members of the Tremper girls team who won Division I team title at the WIAA State Track and Field Championships. We are extremely proud of her accomplishments and are honored to claim her as a true and model representative of our community. Congratulations.
I just wanted to say thank you for the recognition, and this has been greater than I could have ever imagined of how my high school career would turn out, and it's just been really exciting, and the parade and this board meeting and all of it's been really gratifying, and I just want to say thank you.
And Deb, Coach Deb, you know, some of this we're repeating, but when you win Division I in anything, any division, you should take pride in it. And again, we spend a lot of time in committees about people who maybe should be participating more in some things and have their energy well spent. So I just think it's terrific that you're able, the first time Tremper ever did this, right?
Yeah.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Certificate of recognition, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing and indulging us with all the time at this meeting. Certificate of recognition presented to the Tremper girls track and field team. And whereas the Kenosha community is proud of the Tremper girls track and field team that finished an excellent season with 3 of their team members winning Division I team titles, the first in school's history at the 2013 WIAA State Track and Field Championships in lacrosse on June 1st, 2013. And whereas representing the Tremper girls track and field team, runners Danielle Riggins, Tanoia Gully, and Brittany Favor, led by Coach Deb Borenheater, scored 48 points, beating the second place team, Waukesha West, by 2 points. Not that there was any pressure on you. You were the last event, right?
I had no idea that the score was that close going into my race, and they all knew.
We were watching it at home on live. It was pretty crazy. 48 points by 2 points, bringing home the WIAA, the first WIAA track and field title for
Kenosha County team since 1965. And whereas the WIAA State Track and Field Championships, Danielle Riggins earned 22 points, finishing first in the 100 meters hurdles with a time of 14.23 seconds, third in the 300-meter hurdles with a time of 45.998 seconds, and third in the 200-meter dash with a time of 25.06 seconds. Whereas Tanoia Gully has earned 22 points, finishing second in the 100-meter hurdles with a time of 14.43 seconds, second in the 300-meter hurdles with a time of 44.86 seconds, and third in the 100-meter dash with a time of 12.49 seconds. Whereas Brittany Favor captured the final 4 points by finishing fifth in the 3,200-meter run with a time of 10 minutes and 46.76 seconds, which is a new Tremper High School record. And whereas the Tremper girls track and field team's accomplishments and winning attitude are a source of pride, not only for their family, but the entire Kenosha community. Now therefore we, Jim Cruiser, Kenosha County Executive, and Jeff Gentz, County Board Chairman, together with the County Board of Supervisors, do hereby present this recognition, this certificate of recognition to the girls' Tremper track and field team in recognition and appreciation of their hard work and determination in capturing the Division I team title at the WIAA Track and Field Championship. We are extremely proud of their achievements and truly honored as a community to claim them as our true and model representatives of our community. Signed by myself and Jeff Gentz. You are all free to stand and give a great ovation.
I just want to thank you for allowing us to taking this time to recognize the girls. I'd like to say that I could take the credit for it, but I also had other coaches on the team that were extremely important in both of these girls' lives, as well as Danielle Riggins, and that's Ken Walton, who is our hurdle coach, and Chuck Bradley, who is our distance coach. And so I wanted to recognize them as well. It's amazing to win state, but it's even more amazing to do it with only 3 girls. And so it's quite an accomplishment. And I'm proud of them, and I'm glad to see that you guys have recognized their great accomplishment as well, and just want to thank you again.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll open the floor up to supervisors' reports. Supervisor Alverman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Briefly from Public Works Facilities, golfs, highways, parks. Couple updates on things I've been reporting on over the past months, and on this one, it's over a year. The 6th Street Tower replacement, near the end of July of this year, 2013, we should have a resolution with the city. The city should have their resolution with the federal government on the parkland, and we will be able to release the hounds that we've had waiting to dig the hole and get the tower up. So that is the 6th Street. The park and ride structure that I reported on again for months or over a year, as most people are aware, it's done. It's operable. Everything's working out there. So we don't have to report on that any longer. The Yule House process for a realtor has been held up because our purchasing director had an operation and was off for some time, and that has not been done. We do not have a realtor for that sale, and I've been told it's back on track to be done shortly. And the update on the critical facade and roof survey for this building, We will have that hopefully within the next 3 weeks. The city's project is to begin near the end of July. They have been very good at coming to our meetings, working with us on this so that when the streets are dug up on the two sides of this building, everything is going to be done at the same time. The paving projects were mentioned by one of our citizens' comments, and they are ongoing. They were held up somewhat from bad weather in the early summer and spring, but the paving crew is going full steam at this time. The golf operation, I think I've mentioned the weather problems we had naturally with the beginning of the year, and we are down at this point 8,135 rounds from the previous year, and the only reason we are down is the weather. Last year in March, we were open. This year in March, we were not. So we had 0 rounds. Last year in March, we had 3,700 rounds between the two courses. So we, in April, we were down 2,100 rounds between the two courses. May, we were down 600 rounds between the two courses. And in June, we had 15 days of rain out of the 30. So that compromises our shortfall of 8,000 rounds, which is a large amount. The other update on the golf courses is the air conditioning that I reported on going out has not been replaced. It was the bids were submitted. Bids were won by a local company, but in this economy, product is not kept on site as it used to be. The amount of units that a company keeps, and so we actually are waiting for the arrival of the units for the Brighton Hill Golf Course, and July 26th is the date that we are supposed to be back to air conditioning at the Brighton Hill Golf Course, so we can continue having this cool weather that we've had. We'll be in good shape. But that's my report on golf, and brief report on the facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Alverman. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is with deep sadness that I am here to report that John DeMont Mullen has resigned his position from Kenosha County and will be taking a new position up in Green Lake County. He is our youth and family educator for Extension Education. He has been with us for many years, and he is going to be greatly missed. He runs all of our youth programs, and he is just a huge asset to the county. Also, I would like to, on another note, introduce Amy Greel. Amy, could you stand up, please? This is Amy Greel. She is our CONRED, which stands for Community Natural Resources and Economic Development Educator. And she took the place of Annie Jones, and she has some big shoes to fill, but she is doing wonderful in her new position, and I can attest that she came from Waukesha County, so I can tell you that she's going to do great here. Thank you, Amy. And that's it. That's it for tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to let the board know a couple of things. First of all, from Human Services Committee, on your desks this evening, you'll find the Brookside Care Center financial statements ending 5/31/13. As you can see on the front page, they are currently showing a $294,556 profit. It's there on the yellow bullet point there on the first page. If you have any questions, you can contact Fan Putrick, the administrator of Brookside, or Kelly Diem, the business manager. Also, I want the board to know that this past month of June, the Human Services meeting was canceled due to a lack of quorum. The Human Services Committee meeting for the month of July will also be canceled. There are no business items that needed to be taken care of. It was just updates from some of our division heads, but many of them will actually be on vacation during the course of our meeting. So I thought it was wise to perhaps just, everybody could just have a vacation day, so to speak. Want to let the board know that WCA this past week released a survey to counties about technology and cybersecurity. It is an online survey. I don't know how many folks received that, but for those of you that are interested, let me know and I can email you the link so that you can participate. NACO, the National Association of Counties Organization, also released to its attendees for their upcoming conference a survey on civility. It just dropped in my email actually earlier today. Apparently there's a workshop on civility as part of the upcoming July conference. Just want to let the board know I have submitted my name to WCA and to NACO to sit on the NACO steering committee. For the last 20 years or more, our former director of planning and development, George Melcher, was involved in sitting on a NACO steering committee, which means that for 20 years or so, Kenosha has had a seat at the table in terms of developing a lot of state and federal policy, particularly around water, natural resources, and land use. Right now, we don't necessarily have that voice. So I'm hoping to get appointed to one of those steering committees and take on that as an endeavor. Lastly, I want to say thank you to all of you who filled out the surveys I gave to you. At the last meeting, I received information back from about 2/3 of you. At the next county board meeting on July 16th, I'll outline what procedures and methods I'll use to keep you informed about the NACO conference. Also at the next meeting, I want to share with you very briefly some of the information about our county's foreclosure mediation program that is now 2 years old, and we haven't spoken about it since it was instituted back in July of 2011. So there's a bit of financial analysis that I'm trying to do on that program. Wish I would have had it sooner, but it's taken me quite a while to get some of the information that I need, and hopefully I'll have it together by our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hallman. Supervisor Decker.
I just want to mention that I heard a couple supervisors talking that they did not receive their packets once again in the mail. I'd like to receive mine now, from now on, by PDF via email. So, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Decker. Seeing no more lights, supervisors' reports are closed.
New business resolution, one reading from Supervisor Brunig, a resolution recommending adoption of a comprehensive bike plan for Kenosha County 2025, sponsored also by Supervisor Hallman, Ron Frederick, Rose, Boyd Frederick, Gens, Dodge, Molinaro, Johnson, Underhill, Ron Johnson, Esposito, Grady, Kubicki, and Noble.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move resolution 28.
Resolution 28's been moved by Supervisor Brunig, seconded by Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Noodle.
Does this have to go, do we have to suspend the rules to have it tonight, or can the chairman make the decision?
Well, in my estimation, it already went to the committee twice, so I didn't feel the need to send it on to committee.
So basically, you
So
can
I'm
make,
not referring it to committee to answer your question.
so you can make the decision not to refer to.
Yes.
Okay.
Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 years ago, the county received a federal grant for the study and compilation of a comprehensive bike plan. A committee consisting of citizens and municipal representatives met for more than a year to develop this plan. The purpose of the plan is to set a course for future planning. It does not require or mandate that any of its recommendations be implemented. The plan is meant to be a living document, a guideline, or a roadmap. When opportunities arise, if a road is being reconstructed or resurfaced, the plan can be used by the county board as a guideline on whether or not a bike plan should be added. If bike plan grants become available, such as the additional bike trail money that Governor Walker included in the recently approved biennial budget, a grant petition can be filed for additional funding. Without this plan in place, Kenosha County will not be able to obtain grant dollars for the additional work. The money used for the roads can be used as the matching portion to obtain the grant. As with other comprehensive plans that have come through the board, there is no dollar amount attached to it, as this is just a plan to help guide us. It would be unreasonable to attempt to attach a dollar figure to a plan that does not have any engineering studies. The costs will be known when each project is fully vetted and brought to this board, as they always are for final approval. A plan states in the table of contents that there are cost estimates associated with this. This has been incorrectly labeled, as I believe, as it talks about the number of miles that the bike plan runs in each municipality. There has never been an actual cost associated with this plan. To address the other issue of pages missing from the plan, this was not intentional and there is no hidden agenda. The clerk's office has a new copier, and the pages that were left blank intentionally in the original plan were not picked up by the copier. There was nothing on those pages, not even a page number. The committee apologizes for the way the plan pages were assembled, but they are not trying to hide anything. What you see before you tonight is the actual plan. Above all, the board needs to consider the vision of Kenosha County, not just the needs of today, but the quality of life for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. Supervisor Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just refer to the document we have in front of us. This is the comprehensive bike plan. This has been some 2 years in the making. I've been a part of this since its early onset. It began with a group of town village officials, began with a group of private citizens. Quite a number of people came together and sat in that conference room on Highway 1545, broke into subcommittees, and basically had quite a good deal of input over quite a long period of time. So this is not anything that you can think was put together hastily. It was put together by a small group of interested individuals. No, the person that spearheaded this with the Alton Planning Design has been doing this for many years, been through many cities similar to ours, and what you look at here is a condensation, it's a distillation of many hours, many time put together. So every village, every town that's had its input recognized in this plan. I think that's an important point to bring forward. It is no more than a plan. Last night at our committee meeting for Division of Highways, we had a local road improvement plan, and that outlines how there'll be some 12.5 miles paved this coming construction season. This is a plan much like that. It has no budgetary component to it. It's not designed to have a budgetary component. Anyone who wants to kick the budgetary can do that this October, this November, when we go through the budget, and it'll all be presented at that time. In this report as well, there are no mandate to do bike paths. It's simply recommendations, it's ideas, it's a comprehensive plan. And as Supervisor Brunig stated earlier, without a plan like this, you cannot access state and federal funds. So it's important to have this in place, and I think it's well worth all of us to be supportive of it. As far as the whole political thing went down in terms of the committees, there were some major, in my mind, I attended the committee meetings myself, misunderstandings. And a couple of the misunderstandings revolved around the fact that they thought there should be a budgetary component, or at least there was some talk of that not being included in here. That's not its point. It's not supposed to have a budgetary component. There was talk about this would be a mandate, and this would make us want to have a bike path or be obliged. Again, that's not true. For the interested parties here in this room, we did not have full committee meetings in terms of the membership being at the meetings. We had incomplete committee member attendance. I think had we had all our committee members present, this would have passed, and we'd be reviewing it again tonight. So no disparagement to the committee members that couldn't attend. That's not the point. The point is, I'd like to again thank Supervisor Brunig for bringing this forward so we can look at it in the light of day and everyone can have their particular 2 cents put in. One last point I'll leave you with. It was brought up earlier, comment could be said, I don't use the bike path. How does it benefit me? Why should I support it? Came out as one of the last points of this comprehensive bike plan for 2025, this draft. Did you know that if you have a paved bike path on the side of your regular road, that it makes your road last longer? It does. How is that true? Because you don't have vehicular traffic going right up to that fog line, right up to the edge of the road, having the freeze and thaw cycles and crumbling that road bed. So you can talk about the aesthetics of having a bike path, the dynamics, the quality of life, but actually, in fact, this will have your roads last longer in Kenosha County. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Grady. Supervisor Skalitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, tonight we're here to talk about, in my opinion, needs versus wants. Needs are things that you should have. And if we look at our community, there are things that you need. You need shelter for your citizens. You need a steady and reliable food source. Heck, I could even say you need parks for everybody to enjoy. And you need a robust transportation sector to serve the private sector. You need public safety, as been mentioned earlier. And those things are some of the needs that government, local government, certainly county government should be pursuing. We all have plenty of wants. I have many wants. Gee, I wish I had a sports car, but I don't. Many people think they should have free housing or health care. Those are wants, not needs, and I consider this extensive bike plan a want and yet not a need. Now, I was on both of those committees that had very limited time to review it. I was not part of the authorization for the spending on it. I was not part of the committees that sat and laid things out and debated. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't even aware that this plan was being worked on. It had never come up in either one of my committees. But approximately, between maybe 3 to 4 weeks ago, I was informed that one was going to be coming to our committee. You need to be prepared to review it, get your questions put together, ask the various staff members, and try to get answers to those questions. Well, I certainly tried to do that. Unfortunately, one of our joint meetings, I was out of town, wasn't able to attend. So I had to kind of consolidate things and got an opportunity at the joint meeting to ask some questions. And I asked a variety of questions, none of which I seem to get any kind of answers. Now, there's been a lot of comments here about it's only a plan, it doesn't mean anything, it'll give us access to grants. Nobody's named any grants. I look at spending taxpayers' money very seriously because I'm a taxpayer and I represent my constituents to the best of my abilities, making sure that their hard-earned dollars aren't just taken and frivolously spent, as government seems to be an expert at doing. So I said to myself, let's go out and try to figure out what some of your constituents think about the bike plan. And I had a couple graduations parties, so I had a very diverse crowd over the last few weeks. And I went around and talked to a variety of different, whether they were neighbors, acquaintances, whatever the case may be. None of them knew anything about a bike plan. I asked them, what do you think about a comprehensive bike plan? None of them named that as a need for the county or for them personally. We have many areas for citizens of this county to ride bicycles in the county park system. It's an excellent system. And everybody can use parks. It's like golf courses. I oversee that part too. I'm a golfer. Do I believe that county government or local government should be involved in golf? No, but we have golf courses, so we got to make the best of it. I'm not against bicycling. I have a bicycle, and if I really want to ride, I can go to many different places, including right outside my driveway, around my neighborhood, even around my area and my district. I'm not restricted from it, but I use some common sense to say, gee, some of these areas maybe you ought not ride down Highway 50 or Highway H or things of that nature. And some of the argument is, well, we don't have this corridor, we don't have that corridor. One of the concerns I have is, much like golf courses, no one's going to ride bicycles year-round. We have a situation in this community called winter. And riding in snow and ice is extremely dangerous. Now, I wish that most everybody would really embrace this and say, yeah, I'm going to start riding my bike, because I do agree. It is good for the community's health, but it's not realistic. The amount of constituents, I'm only guesstimating because nobody has come to me and said, Mike, will you please support this plan and expand our bike network throughout the community, because I really want to increase my property taxes. Not a one. So I'm guesstimating maybe it's 0.5%. Maybe I'm off a little bit. Because again, we don't have any details in here to give us numbers to guide our decision making, because at the committee level, as I've stated many times, I expect the reviews, the vetting, the heavy lifting to be done at the committee level. Yet, we start asking some questions, whether it's the committee that put this together or the administration doesn't like some of our questions, and the next thing I know, our committee chairman's taking an end around on it because she doesn't like the way that the vote went on that committee. And rather than return it back to committee where it belongs for some additional vetting, review, questioning, understanding, so we can make a fact-based decision, rather than just trust the committee that put this together. No, it's going to come to the board floor. And a lot of people have signed on for this. Now, I'm only ballparking here because, of course, once again, I don't know any real specific cost. But if you can ballpark this thing together, it's probably $150 million in spending long term. And since it does say 2025 on here, I'm guesstimating that's over a 12-year period. Because otherwise, why would you need 2025 in the title? Could have been 2050. Could have been 3,000. Who knows? But it isn't. So that's a tremendous amount of spending without one specific return on investment stated. Now, there's an individual earlier that was citing a report that was done by the University of Wisconsin, and I'm certain that there was no bias in that report. It was all unbiased, and the numbers are probably accurate. However, not anything was referenced or able to answer when we asked questions at the committee level on this plan. And I'm sorry, I do look at this plan as a mandate because that's how it is. That's how it will be used. You guys guys looked at this plan. You passed this plan. Now we're going to act on it. And yet, I don't have any constituents knocking my door down for it. I did have some contacts against it, but none asking me to support it. Now, like I had stated earlier, I wasn't around for the authorization and the spending of this. But everyone wants to say, well, we didn't have to spend any money. It was $120,000 roughly that was spent on putting together this plan. It's a lot of pages. $120,000 worth? I don't know about that part. I don't think that the value is quite there for that kind of money. However, Mr. Chairman, you had said, and I quote, people ought to put a lot of time and effort into this, and we paid for this plan. We thought enough to authorize a plan. We're getting a plan. If you don't like it, don't vote for it. But you shouldn't vote against it for unknown costs that can't be in front of you. Can't be in front of you. We're talking about over $150 million all told when you start trying to cobble this together. And we can't even get a rough estimate of what this is supposed to be. But I'm supposed to just Okay, vote against it or for it, doesn't matter. It does matter because I'm concerned not so much about when I sit in this chair, but the next person, the person after that, because I still live in this community, I still pay taxes, and I do support many things about this community. But I like to have, just on the way down here, the roads that I had to travel are just in disrepair, and we've only got so much money to spend on them. And then to divert some of that, that'll go towards bike paths. But the argument is, well, there'll be grants and there'll be free money. There's no free money. Our nation is in debt up to its eyeballs, but, it's not our money. It is our money, and it's a legacy we're leaving to our kids. And everyone wants to just think that, well, if without this plan, we can't get any free money. Nothing is free. And we need to start rethinking the way that government operates and the way that it just thinks it can keep taking from the taxpayer. There are many people in this community that are hurting just to make ends meet, and increasing taxation because a very small percentage of the people in this community want more bike paths than what they already have. It's not fair, and I've used the term before, it's not conscionable. Now, one of the things we did have put before us was the 2 model cities that this was. And ironically, these are the 2 home bases for this ALTA organization that put this plan together. Madison and Portland. Well, I can only go off of what the estimations based on the latest census is for 2012. Madison's population is roughly estimated at 240,323. Portland, 587,865,000. Kenosha, 100,000, 150. It just seems to be a little, I don't know, difference there in the amount of population, and that's just the city. We won't get into the county. I'm not going to talk in the county levels because the numbers go up from there. 60% larger in Madison, 83% larger population size in Portland. But those are the 2 model communities that we're going to base this off of. Those are heavily populated urban areas. If this was concentrated more to the city of Kenosha, perhaps there would be a little bit greater usage. But just the last board meeting, I'm sitting out in my car reviewing some notes before we had to review the bike plan, and I see the trolley come by. Another community investment that's really going to bring businesses here. It's just such a great investment. And it was, what was it, maybe 5:45, 6 o'clock. Yep, there was 3 people on it, the operator and 2 elderly women. To me, that doesn't look like a real good return on investment. And nowhere have I ever had a business come to me or anybody state that, boy, if you had more bike paths, we'd have moved our business here. No. Infrastructure, low taxes, a quality workforce, a great education system. That's what they're looking for, not more bike paths. We already have some. My concern with this plan is simply this. There are more questions than I have answers, and a plan does equal a mandate in government's eyes. I'm glad that the chairwoman answered why the content changed, and I appreciate that update, because that was another one of my concerns. Passing something without knowing the specific costs, it reminds me of the Affordable Care Act. If you remember that beauty. Yeah, we're all going to suffer for that because it was free health care.
Supervisors.
No, I have the floor.
Point of order. State your point of order.
It has a lot to do with it if you just tune in for a few minutes.
Okay, let's keep it civil. Continue on.
That was supposed to be passed so we could understand what was in it. It's the same thing. What's in this? We'll pass it, and then we'll get around to finding what's in it. And we just heard that we needed to increase taxes next year by anywhere from $450,000 to $600,000 as a contingency. Now, the argument to this plan is that nothing will get passed. There's no spending authorizations. That doesn't mean it doesn't give a mandate to start bringing them. And it seems like some supervisors in the room never met a spending proposal they didn't want to endorse. That's okay. Your constituents either aren't holding you accountable for your votes, or they want to have their property taxes go up. My constituents do not. They would like to see a decrease. But when you start spending more money on needs versus, or on wants versus needs, then taxes will go up. Businesses aren't attracted necessarily. There isn't a more robust private sector, and as a result, a growing tax base. As one of the citizen commentary had identified to, Pleasant Prairie is a great example. They've done a great job of really developing the private sector. And what has that done? That has helped the entire community. But it isn't because they put in more bike paths. It's because they have creatively had some forethought in managing and improving their transportation network, their TIF districts, and attracting businesses to come and move there. Now, I felt compelled to speak out because, you know, I look at these types of large proposals. The other thing is, I hear about it in 2 weeks. What is the rush about passing this plan? I never got an answer why it had to be rushed through. Not one. There's not a single grant. Well, you know what? A couple meetings ago, we had to rush through a Health and Human Services resolution because there was a grant we needed to apply for. Nothing here. Not one. There wasn't any rationale. So why can't it go back to committee for further questioning, further analysis, really understanding what's going on here? I'm not the only one that just heard about this. There are others on this board that did. And I want to better understand exactly the long-term ramifications for this. And with it, $150 million of spending long-term, that's a lot of taxpayer money that I want to understand what is the return on investment. The other thing that was stated in this plan, the improvement to safety. And yet, not one single fact was presented or given to us with regards to, okay, what is the current level of accidents or bicycle-related injuries? Nothing. But it's in here as one of the big selling points. We're going to improve safety. We're going to improve affordability, accessibility, and all these other things. But no facts. Just a lot of long-term spending. And that is where my concerns come in. I, right now, am not going to support this resolution, as you can tell. And the reason is because these kinds of things need to be vetted out at the committee level. We did not get a thorough time to do that at the committee level. We got 2 meetings. That's it. None of us are a full-time county supervisor. So to fit in all of life, work, and all the other things, and then go through a 65-page document with 8 appendices and understand it takes some time. It takes some time to digest it. I don't take my responsibilities for my constituents lightly, and I want to make sure that I am representing their best interest. And maybe, indeed, it is either this plan or some facsimile thereof. Right now, I'm just not convinced thereof. So I appreciate the time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Skalitsky. Supervisor Rose.
I'll move the previous question.
Second.
Okay, the question's been called and seconded. Would you like a roll call on this?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call on calling the question. Ending discussion. Yep. And this needs 2/3, right? 2/3. 2/3.
Of those present.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
It fails. We continue on.
Claims, William
No,
Swanson.
no.
Sorry?
No. We failed, it failed
Oh, I'm sorry.
to end the question, so we're still on it.
You didn't Sorry.
Actually, Supervisor Rose will give you the floor back.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought we might end this debate.
Yes.
Yeah.
The question has not been, we've not ended discussion, so the debate is open. We're going to continue to debate it. We're not done with it.
Can't speak first.
You
and
can't
then
speak
talk.
first and call the question is the rule. You can call the question and then speak if the
Yes.
chairman so recognizes.
Sure. Supervisor Rose,
All right,
please continue.
Thank you, and I would support the Comprehensive Bike Plan for Kenosha County 2025. Kenosha used to be a manufacturing community. We used to sell the fact that we had jobs at factories that made things like American Motors, American Brass, Simmons, and many others. We sold the idea of high wages and good benefits. Those days are long behind us, and what we have today to sell is the quality of life. I wish we had the economy that Portland, Oregon, or Madison, Wisconsin have had when they were smaller communities. These communities have quality of life that we should aspire to and copy. And when you read these articles about the best communities in America, what do they talk about? They talk about the recreational activities that we have here in Kenosha, many of which are undeveloped. Biking is one of them. Marathons, boating, a lakefront, good education, health care. What do we read in these surveys about the Kenosha health? It's very bad. It's an embarrassment. It's something that needs to be rectified. The current state of the health of the community is not good and worthy of considerable discussion. This is one attempt to deal with that kind of issue. We're a long way from being on the list of best communities in America, but we're certainly going in the right direction with plans like the one presented this evening. This doesn't spend any money. Each idea will be brought to us and voted upon. And bear in mind, as Mr. Clark, who was a member of this board, indicated, that some of these costs which are included are costs for the whole road. We're not going to necessarily tear up the roads as they are and start all over just because we want a bike path right now. That will be dealt with on an as-needed basis. This is a plan for the future, 2025. When Mr. Skalitsky argues to this board, the roads are in disrepair. It's not the county roads that are in disrepair. It's the city roads that are in disrepair. It's perhaps some of the town roads, but it's not the county roads are well repaired. And why are they well repaired? Because we have a plan every year to spend X number of dollars on X number of miles, and that miles has varied from year to year depending upon the economic ability of the community to sustain it. But there has been no year when we have ignored county roads. We paved 7 or 8 one year and perhaps 9 or 10 or 11 in another year. But we've always had a plan. We've always had a plan to replace sheriff's deputies' cars. We haven't waited for all of them to fall apart and then order an enormous number. We've had a plan every year to replace so many cars. When we have gone to Moody's and Standard & Poor's, one of the ideas that we sell to them is that we do have plans. We just don't let the problem of the moment capture us. A community that has long-term plans is a community that can look forward to growth. It's a community that aspires to be one of the best communities in this state and to this country. So I would urge your support in that vein for the comprehensive bike plan for Kenosha County for 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Alverman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm gonna be very brief. I didn't think that we would be going into 7 or 8 speakers on this one, but I feel the need to say something. This is a very simple, uncomplicated matter that the county board would normally handle, possibly a little bit more professionally. I do believe that the initial presentation was poorly done. That gave, rise to some unanswered questions, and probably the reason we're sitting here this evening. What you do have, and I know there's people just don't flat believe this here, and we're going to hear from a couple more probably this evening. When you do a plan like this, you do have an option as a county board supervisor to not spend the money. That's why we're here. That's why there's 23 of us, and everything does come before us. Anything that spends money comes before us. We did a recently, now I've been here 18 to 19 years. Recently, a Parks and Open Space plan that covers us to the year 2035. It pictures us doing amazing things, and it's a recommendation from the people to add land, buy more parks, do numerous things that would cost in the millions of dollars. And it is a guideline to, just as this is, to the communities. It covers all the county's properties. It covers the local community. It covers what the state owns in Kenosha County with their parkland, and tells us what would be the optimum, what would be the ideal, what the population would require by 2035. So it gives us things to look at. And as a member of a committee or a chairman of a committee, it gives you something that you put on your agenda, you discuss, and you say, how can we move forward? What's the easiest and the best way for us to move forward with this? We don't have to agree with the whole plan. We look at the quality of life in Kenosha County, and you move forward. So this debate on this plan, it's great to be passionate, and it's great to have those concerns. But as conservative or liberal as you may want to be, and some people, when I came to this county board, thought of me as horribly conservative. Where I live, I'm considered subversively liberal. So it depends on where you are, what you're thinking, what you're doing. But I have never seen this county board be an open checkbook. It certainly hasn't been my way of doing business, and when I look around the room here, I don't see anyone that's been that way. And to still see demons in this plan and not believe that there are no funds involved is something that we will not change the minds of the people that feel that way. So people that signed on to this resolution, people that aren't afraid of it, I'm urging that we move this forward as soon as possible this evening and approve this so that the communities, the county can start planning, and that we can start to implement some of these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Alverman. Supervisor Molinaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have... Actually,
well, I'll give you the next. Just push your button and you can go next. It's not even showing up on mine. So, Supervisor Molinaro, you have the floor. Continue.
Thank you. I have in front of me an email that, copy of an email that Supervisor Skalitsky sent out this morning, dated July 2nd, 2013. Today, sent at 9:36 a.m. At 8:25 this evening, which was less than 11 hours, just short of 11 hours, two very significant figures in this email. One stating that the total cost for this plan, this is in red in this copy, total cost for this plan was over $100,000. In just short of 11 hours, it went up 20%. This evening, it's $120,000 we spent or wasted in his mind on this plan. The one that's incredibly alarming, also in red, some quick calculations from the estimates in the plan call for, again, this is at 9:36 this morning, call for $76,692,500. Pretty specific budget for shared use and bike lanes alone. Again, just shy of 11 hours later in his debate, he now says it's $150 million. So I find it interesting that the staff and the paid consultant are, if not specifically stated, insinuated to be less than forthright, less than factual, less than professional, certainly not experts, apparently, because we spent way too much on the plan, whether at $100,000 or the 20% more this evening. Yet Mr. Skalitsky, in a matter of 11 hours, can double his projection and increase the cost of the plan by 20%. So right out of the box, I have very little that I'm going to take at face value in what was presented by one of our earlier speakers. I will say, however, that the chairman, or the county executive of Kenosha County, Mr. Cruiser, has made no secret about his plan to improve safety and access for bikers in Kenosha County from day one. The fact that you may or may not have been on this board when the $100,000 plan was approved for study by an expert who was recognized as an expert by agencies and people across this country, maybe not by some in this room, but certainly others who I would suggest know more than we do. It isn't our issue you weren't on the board. I realize that we should probably have gone through some type of educational tutorial and gone through every single vote that happened, but let's be realistic here. It isn't my issue you didn't make the meeting, one of the two, where you could have gotten some of these questions vetted and answered. Not my issue. Economic development. I sat on the steering committee for the downtown plan. I trust there are many in this room who aren't going to support, or at least a few, who may not support that plan as well, because it's a study, as was stated here. Incidentally, well, that doesn't matter. I've never heard this said before. This plan has long-reaching implications every taxpayer of Kenosha County. No, I'm sorry, that's not the one. These are important points, so I hope you'll bear with me. Oh, here we go. State that this plan is only a plan and that no spending is being approved. We all know, I've never heard this in my nearly 20 years on the board. We all know plans magically turn into mandates once the dust settles. If I've heard anything, it has been exactly the opposite, that we have more plans on shelves collecting dust that we spent money on. Now, when it doesn't fit our purpose, this is some sort of magic wand that we approve or we say yes to tonight, and we're trapped for what one might want us to believe is a $150 million expenditure. But back to the downtown Kenosha plan. What we heard over and over and over again from an expert known throughout the country is exactly the reason why we have parks. I find it interesting that parks are a need, not a want. I don't think we need parks in this community by any stretch of the imagination. Imagine what we could save in tax dollars if we got rid of the parks. No maintenance there. We can get rid of them altogether. I don't use the parks myself. Occasionally, I ride my bike through Pets if I happen to go that way in the morning. So I see the bike path as much of want or a need, depending how you look at it, as the parks are, or the golf courses, or the list goes on, or the beaches, or whatever else. Who says we need Silver Lake Beach? I'll tell you who says it. Every consultant worth their weight in salt, who any community across this country, 20% our size or 120% our size, when it comes to attracting business and quality investment in your location. You want some facts and figures? I hope you were listening. $924 million economic impact to a community. $500 million from outside of the state. Rate of return on the investment, 70 to 1. Let's assume for a minute those numbers are as inflated as the figures in the email. It's still 35 to 1. Pretty good return. I'd take that all day long. Why did we do the broadband a few years ago in Kenosha County? Where do you put that? Need or want? People need broadband? There's days I don't think we need it in my house because my kids would communicate better. Is it a need or a want? It's a need because it's all about economic development. It's a need because it connects communities within the county. 160, I'll give you the numbers, 166 to 170,000 strong is Kenosha County's population. Every time you talk about growth, you know, there was a time, Supervisor Rose, that we were one of the best places, rated as one of the best places to live and raise a family. We haven't been there for a long time. Thankfully, we had people in the positions we occupy today and above us in every corner of this county who said, no, we don't think it's wise to sue Chrysler. But they said one other thing. We do think an investment in industrial parks is a good thing. Do you think they spent $150 million on infrastructure all told over time through TIFs and everything else? I would suspect they did. I'll bet you that's a safer bet than your 0.5% of people who are interested in this issue. Thankfully, we had members who occupied our seats at that point in time that said, this makes sense. Because when I packed my car with my wife and left this community, literally with tears in our eyes, not believing we'd ever be back here, in 1989, September, 88 maybe, whenever we got married. It's because they were saying that Kenosha County was going to be just like Gary, Indiana, and that is exactly what was printed in the newspaper. But thankfully, we had people that thought bigger and thought better and thought broader. You want economic development to take place? You want return on investment? Then you have to stop saying, here's the deal. If trains aren't any good, and it wasn't too long ago that trains were no good, right? Mass transit, we can't have mass transit in this county board. So we killed that discussion. That died its own death on a bigger scale, but certainly in Kenosha County, we did all we could to kill it. You don't like mass transit. You don't want anything to do with bicycles. So I'm assuming then that everyone, each to his own car, and we're just going to continue that approach. It simply is not going to work long term. Chicago just implemented a bike share program. I think within the last couple weeks they kicked it off. Might have been last week, right? Modeled it after cities across this globe. Yet Kenosha County is going to say, you know what, I wasn't here when we authorized spending on this plan, so how could I support it? Nobody told me. Nobody told me either when I first got here. It's the nature of the beast. I agree this isn't that not everybody is necessarily going to be impacted by this. But if you look, not everyone's going to be impacted by a downtown that flourishes. So they think. But all you have to do is look at study after study, and it tells you that any community with a vibrant downtown, the entire county succeeds. Any community that has parks and lakefronts and bike paths. Have you heard the latest report? I think it was given at a county board meeting recently about, once again, our tourism dollars in Kenosha County up. All of that is because we continue to be forward-thinking. That's what's going to make it so that Supervisor Skalitsky's taxpayers, constituents, and my constituents, and everybody in this room is going to have the benefit of spending that's in check and taxes that don't continue to climb. When we have more tax base to draw from, when we have more businesses that are here. We have one heck of a 20-year track record in Kenosha County. Now is not the time to get nervous about continuing to move that plan forward. Pleasant Prairie, with a population of 20,000, has a comprehensive bike plan prepared by the same consultant that we just hired to do this one. And we're saying that at 100,000, 100 isn't enough, 160, 170,000 countywide isn't enough. Well, we shouldn't have said yes to the broadband, and certainly shouldn't have said yes to a number of other things that came before this board, if in fact this is the approach we're going to take. I support this plan. I have read this plan. I'm typically one who will say, what are the costs, where are the costs, but I get why they're not here. I understand why they're not here, and I wasn't part of the overall, or the initial committee meetings either, but I just don't see this as being very complicated. At the end of the day, this is a 30-year plan, I've heard, right? When it's all said and done, the final route may look nothing like this plan. That's not atypical either. But at the end of the day, I would suspect, based on the good fundamental basis that's in these pages before you, at the end of the day, we will have a continuous, connected bike system in Kenosha County and all of its communities that will be based on the fundamental principles that are before you tonight. And that's the true test of a good plan. I think you have it. Let's vote it up tonight and move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Molinaro. Supervisor Nudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess we had a lot of talking about this. I'm going to try to make it pretty short. I just want to say what I've been saying in committee. I had many questions. Most of them were not answered yet. But my biggest concern is the financial portion of it. Now, everybody's talking about it's just a plan. It's not going to cost us any money right now. Well, I understand it's a plan. However, I believe that a plan, anytime I make a plan for myself, my goal is to fulfill that plan. And in order to do that, we should put some financial number in that. Just an estimate. The estimate is not going to be 100% right. Also, we might be able to get grants in the future, so it's not going to be all the money that we're going to spend. However, we're going to have to start somewhere. The only number really that I heard from the person that prepared the plan was that the city of Portland spent $300 million for the bike plan. And she was comparing Portland with Kenosha. Now, is that going to cost us $300 million? Well, probably not. I tried to work out some financial numbers based on those numbers that we have here on page 65, which some of the other people don't have that page, and I come out with approximately $80-some million. I'm not really sure if it's right or not, but nobody can tell me what the number is going to be. Also, they were talking about the city of Kenosha coming in with the plan to develop the downtown area and I believe it's the uptown area. Also, they say it's a plan. But in that plan there, they do have an amount. They have a financial estimate on what the plan is going to cost. The other thing is, it's probably going to come out. This board is not going to be, the 23 members on this board are not going to be here for the next 6, 10, 20 years. This plan is going to be implemented. They're going to vote on it, future people, and probably the first thing you're going to hear is say, we already voted on this plan. This plan was approved, so therefore we should go with that. I'm not saying it's a bad plan. Maybe we need it. Maybe we're going to have to scale it down a little bit. And that's the reason why I want to know, to have some kind of an estimate on what the amount is going to be. Plan for what's coming up, but let's put some financials in there. I'm not going to support this. I'm not going to support this plan in the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Nudo. Supervisor Noble.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to just first say that Supervisor Skolitsky, I appreciate and I even applaud your passion. I was at the first meeting. I asked several specific questions, and I feel I didn't really get the answers that I had hoped for. But I couldn't vote that night because we didn't have a quorum. And one thing I want to say, if you're a chairman or if you ever will be a chairman, don't ever schedule a meeting and have a possible adoption of a plan that's 85 pages long and you got it the day before. Don't expect the committee to just go along with the people that put it together, because I think, and I've always felt, that the number one thing that you need to do as a representative of your constituents is read the material that's in front of you before you vote on it. And I have now read this plan, but I didn't have an opportunity to read it with 1 day's notice for 85 pages. So let that be, something that you should know in the future. Don't schedule a meeting in such a way. Having said that, there were some things that I don't like in this plan. There's some things, though I have signed on to it, I am going to support it tonight. The needs analysis, I've mentioned this when we had the CIP plan, and you will get a vote very soon on the first component of this comprehensive plan is going to be County Highway H, connecting the Illinois Trail to basically running past Prairie Spring Parks, which will be able to connect in that nice trail they have around the lake at Lake Andrea and moving northward. That will be in next year's budget, so you'll have an opportunity to vote on some dollars right there. But I actually said a year ago now in that CIP, and it was one of my disappointments in this report, they used biking demand modeling techniques instead of getting people out there and counting bikers. I think we should actually have, I think they call it empirical data, actual counts of bike traffic before we move forwards to spend money, but not necessarily for this plan. There's, on page 39, there's a short-term recommendation, which I'm not going to support. I don't know what they call short-term, but hire a bicycle coordinator. Not supporting it. And the funding mechanisms, I think there should be a section, there should have been a section in here talking about funding mechanisms, not to the specifics that Supervisor Skolitsky possibly was talking about, but for example, snowmobiles, trails are funded by a licensing systems and money comes back, and I've been on the board for 20-some years, and every year we get $80,000, maybe $100,000 back to fund the trails. There's a volunteer system of the people that groom the trails, but there's money being put in every single year for that. We need to think about different funding mechanisms. I've been suggesting for about 7 years that the county do a hot air balloon rally in the KD Park. And maybe that would be an option for the funding, would be, the proceeds would be put towards funding the bicycle trails. I don't know, something outside the box that we can do to move this plan along, because part of me says, I probably would use the trails. I don't have a bicycle. I don't think I have a bicycle. I don't have a bicycle that I've ridden for a long time. And, but I might, if there was, it was a safer trail, for me to ride on. So having said that, I don't think this plan is a slam dunk. I do appreciate the passion of the people talking. I think it's one of the strengths of the county board, where you can, we don't all have to agree on everything, and we listen to the other person's point of view, and we have our own, and then we have a vote, and it's over. So I'm ready to support it, and when everybody else has a chance to express their point of view, I'll be supporting this plan tonight.
Thank you, Supervisor Noble. Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would really love to know where the supervisor of the 19th retrieved his information, where he derived his numbers. I think as electeds, we're entitled to know that. If you disagree with something and you think that the information is skewed and you come up to a different conclusion, we have every right to know how you came to that conclusion. In my copy, I don't have anything that would lead me to that. There isn't anything in here that says that we're paving paths with gold bricks. So I don't quite understand where that's headed. But I will say that we've done a number of plans. I think back to the multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan that took inventory of everything in this county, from our agricultural land to our cultural attractions, to where our school systems were, our schools were, our hospitals were, our power lines, everything, and talked about what the strengths and weaknesses were of what we had and how we could improve them and move forward. Marvelous document if you look at what's in there. But I'm also reminded that the good book tells us that where there is no vision, the people perish. It also says my people perish for lack of knowledge. So there's something about dreaming and thinking and evaluating that's critical to the success of a people, of a society, and certainly for a government as leaders. So I support this plan. I like this plan. I'm curious to see what comes out of it as we debate some of the components, but this isn't anything unusual or unique that we haven't necessarily done before. I will say in closing, I'm a little bit troubled by some of the things I've heard tonight. I myself am a planner. There are things I bring to this body that are a little outside the box. Many times, they don't cost us any money. I work very, very hard to see that they don't, because I know how we feel about spending. And so I worry that if we get a debate like we've had about this on the next thing that I'm going to bring forward in a couple of months, how that might also descend into chaos. So I'm a little bit troubled. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Holman. Supervisor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been taking notes, so I have comments that I'd like to make. So they may be out of order a little bit, but that was as I've been taking notes. First of all, I was kind of surprised tonight when I showed up and saw bike people here to speak in favor of the plan when there's no bikes outside. They didn't ride their bikes here? They drove? It's kind of surprising. One note I took was that the first meeting that we had on this was very hostile. I was confronted and spoken over during the meeting, and it was a very negative experience. And I know another supervisor had the same thoughts on it because that supervisor contacted me about it. So I'd just like to point that out. Several people have said this plan costs nothing, things like that. Well, actually the plan costs approximately $120,000, but implementing the plan does cost money, because in the future it will cost money. I hear all the time from the administration, people in the administration, that, oh, let's write for this grant. It doesn't cost us anything to write for the grant, and if we get the funds, then we can vote on it if we want to spend the money. But every time we get the grant, then basically we're told, well, you told us to write for the grant, now you have to accept the money because you told us to do it. And that's kind of the way I believe this bike plan will be. You told us to write for the grant for the bike plan, which, by the way, I wasn't around to do that. We got the grant for the bike plan. Now we have the bike plan. Now, according to, let me quote the newspaper, I think it's very odd, and I don't think we've ever had this happen before. When we voted to have this plan drawn up, everyone agreed this would be a good thing for Kenosha County. So basically, it's surprising that someone voted against the bike plan because they approved drawing up the plan. And that's how it will be when things are wanting to be implemented in this plan. It'll be, you guys supported the plan, so why aren't you supporting what we want to implement it? That's how it's going to be. Don't try to tell me something different, because I've learned that that's how it is. I've voted in the past to apply for funding for grants because people have told me it's just applying, we don't have to take the money. But then in committee hearings or committee meetings, it's always a hard pressure to approve accepting the grant because they wrote for it. And I know that's how it will be. And it says, well, we'll get grants in the future. Where does the money come from grants? It doesn't grow on trees. Grants from the state and federal government come from the taxpayer. It is not free money. And then retired Supervisor Clark said that bonding takes a 3/4 vote. That's true, it does. But I have questions about how the process is when these bike plans will come in. Will we actually get to vote on them individually, or will they be in the budget? Because I looked in the budgets in the past, and it would have been the 2012 budget, the CIP plan had, wait, pardon me, just 1 minute. I'm looking at the wrong thing. In the 2013, it says in the 2013 budget, a CIP plan for County Highway H, South 50 to State Line, there was an expense to construct bike lanes on both sides of County Highway H from Highway 50 to the state line. The expense was $1,149,573. The bonding was $229,615, and revenue, which I'm assuming is grants, is $919,958. Now, I heard from Supervisor Overman, and I wish, if I am incorrect, if he would please correct me, that the bike lanes for Highway H were completely funded with bonding money. Is that correct or incorrect? That is correct. At the bike plan meeting, you discussed bike paths that were completely funded by county dollars. Where was that located?
When we add our 3-foot from the fog line out now on our normal paving process, that's all paid by county. So last year, it would have been Highway, or 2 years ago, Highway O, Highway KD 3 years ago. Something like Highway H, that was, I believe, 80% federal?
That looks about right.
Yeah.
So, but we do not get grants for all of our bike path or funding or things like that. It's not all grant funded, correct?
Well, it depends on what you call a bike path.
Well,
When we
bike
add
lanes,
on the
there's a
fog line-
difference. There's
Okay,
bike
we're gonna
lanes.
end the debate back and forth.
Okay.
You
I'm not
continue with your
debating, I'm just
comments.
asking.
Well, we don't need to have the discussion. You
All right.
continue with your comments.
Okay. To Supervisor Hallman, speaking about the money, the dollar amount that Supervisor Skalitsky had mentioned and Supervisor Molinaro had mentioned, that $76,692,500, that is a number I came up with. On page 65 of the bike plan that I have, that conveniently most of the supervisors here did not get, as Supervisor Bruning mentioned, states that shared lane markings cost $20,000 per mile. Bike lanes cost $36,000 per mile. And shared use paths cost $1.25 million per mile. Those are the cost assumptions. And the shared use path assumes a 12-foot path, and estimates do not include right-of-way acquisition costs, costs for potentially required bridges or retaining walls, or costs for amenities including lighting, benches, bicycle parking, interpretive kiosks, etc. So I went through page 51, 52, 53, and 54. And each line item that had a bike lane, I multiplied the length by the cost associated on page 65. So the bike lanes were 36,000. So for example, the first line, 12.1 miles times 36,000 is $435,600. I went through that for the bike lanes, not the bike routes, because we were not given cost estimates on that. The shared use paths, which, for example, on Highway C from Highway W to I-94, which is in the short-term plan, which short-term plan is 0 to 6 years based on page 51, that cost for that shared use path is $17 million. Add all of those up, just the shared use path, share lane markings, and the bike lanes, and that equals $76,692,500, unless I accidentally typed a number wrong. That does not include the cost for paved shoulders or bike routes. So that obviously is a low estimate for this plan, since half the items in here I did not have numbers to figure out. So that is where that number came from. I was discussing it with Supervisor Sklitsky, and he took that number and went with it. Things in this plan that I had questions about, I sat down with Andy Bueller of Planning and Development for at least an hour and asked him questions. I have my notes in here, and there were many questions I did not get answered. I am not excited about funding a full-time or part-time bike coordinator in here. I don't support the Complete Streets program that is talked about in here, especially the point where it talks about making roads narrower to accommodate bikes, which made me question, sitting with Mr. Bueller, Highway 31, how are we gonna have a bike lane on that? Well, the Complete Streets plan says it's okay to make roads narrower. We gonna make Highway 31 4 lanes instead of 6? Don't know, didn't get an answer about that. So those are just a few of the questions I had and concerns, and that's why I'm not voting for the comprehensive bike plan for Kenosha County 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Decker. Supervisor Montemuro.
Thank you, Chairman. I know we've been going back and forth all night, but I want to say something. The reason we have committees is to hash this out. I never like anything that looks like it's going to be rushed, and when something's done and it doesn't go through and people don't like it, they bypass it. Committee did not bring this forward, and here it is. And I want to thank committee member Nudo, Skalinski, and Decker, who spent time looking at the numbers. When you're going to pass a plan for multiple years, you don't even know if you're still going to be sitting on this board, you have to let everyone's questions be answered. There is no rush to this plan. It's inappropriate to shove it through our throats through the backyard. You know, when Supervisor Decker brought up a resolution, it went to some committee and it was suspended indefinitely. I don't even know how a body can do anything indefinitely. Nobody here is indefinitely here. And I don't want to hear that this won't make a difference in the future. When we voted on the casino, I was told, oh, we spent a lot of money. Let's just make it short. This has already been passed by many people, so just pass it. That's not what's happening. Our money has to be looked at. We have new people on the board. They have to be respected. And the 3 people speaking out tonight against this are on the committee that looked at it. I like the idea of a bike plan. We own this plan. We already spent $100,000 on it. There's no rush to mandate that it be accepted. You keep it, you bring it, you answer your questions, and you bring it forward piece by piece. You don't mandate that we spend money for the next 12 years because a group of people said we had to. So we own the plan. I'm glad we spent the money to have the plan. We need bikes in the future, fine, but we need to look at it as it comes up. It's not going to happen in one day anyway, so I have no idea why this is being rushed if the committee members have questions and money is not being looked at. So I would like to ask corporate counsel, can this go back to committee or not? Is that a done deal because the chairman said it can't? Or can there be a motion on the floor to put this back to committee? Because I would make that motion.
The motion has been made by Supervisor Montemuro to send this back to committee.
Second.
Seconded by Supervisor
Never
Nudo.
rush anything, ever.
Which committee are you talking about, PDEC?
Yes.
Okay.
The people with the questions. Every question, I believe every question should be answered.
That's fine.
And not rushed. Both, as far as I'm concerned.
fine.
This is not going to be built tomorrow. This is
Okay.
a multiple-year plan, and we already paid for it. We own it. Even if it sits on a shelf and we bring it out year by year, who cares? Who says
Okay,
we have to
it's been
commit
mo-
to it
It's
forever?
been moved and seconded to send it back to committee. We're gonna, is a roll call requested? Roll call is requested on sending it back to committee.
They let you. Yeah, what the hell's the rush?
Oh,
Oh.
Dan go? No, I said Dan's gone.
Go get them, we need them for this. Just to make it clear, if you would like this to go back to committee, you vote yes. If you would not like it to go back to committee and we resolve it tonight, you vote no. Okay, it's failed on the attempt to go back to committee, so we will continue with where we were at. Grady. Supervisor Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Had quite a lively little debate here this evening. Glad that both sides are represented. Certainly more time and effort expended than I would have guessed by looking at what's in front of me, so I'd like to thank you all, but I would move to call the question.
It's been moved by Supervisor Grady, seconded by Supervisor Rose to call the question. There will be no debate on that. Do you request a roll call along with that? Okay. Point of information.
I believe Supervisor Grady spoke before about this year. Can he still call the question since he previously spoke on that?
Yes, it's not that he's spoken before. I think you can have spoken before and then continued on, and you can still call the question. Am I correct? Yes, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we will take a roll call on calling the question and ending debate. A yes will end debate. That's what we need. Okay. Okay.
Second. So we have to vote on the main motion?
We just have a motion to adjourn.
with the meeting.
Point of information, Supervisor Mullin.
I didn't hear that. Was someone asking to take their ball and go home? I didn't hear the motion.
The motion was to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, so they are asking to take their ball and go home?
If you don't recognize someone, that, and somebody shouts it out, that's not a recognition of the motion.
Thank you.
It's out of order.
And the beat goes on. And the beat goes
All right, it was not Supervisor Nudo's turn to speak, so we're not going to recognize that. We will continue on. The question's been called. We're going to continue on with this. So it's on the original motion. Roll call requested. Just to be clear, yes, you're supporting the bike plan presented. No, you're not.
This is, I'm sorry, this is on the plan, correct?
Wait.
There we go.
Okay, the comprehensive bike plan is passed, 17-4. Continuing on.
Claims, William Swanson, vehicle damage.
Refer to Corporation Council.
Kayla Asboth, personal injury.
Refer to Corporation Council.
Alicia Pollock, personal injury.
Refer to Corporation Council.
Approval of the June 18, 2013 minute by Supervisor Molinaro.
Supervisor Molinaro.
So moved.
It's been moved by Supervisor Molinaro, seconded by Supervisor Brunig to approve the minutes of June 18th. All those in favor? Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. It's been moved by Supervisor Underhill, seconded by Supervisor
Spent a lot of money on
to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.